The horror of teaching critical race theory to kids. Oh, haven't we seen this guy? Wasn't this guy like the really, really creepy like skit YouTuber who was also like he was like a cult leader who sold like supplements or something? Yeah, I think this guy is actually mentally unwell. Awaken with JP appeals to the exact same audience as Tom McDonald. Yeah, obviously. Conservatives are into this type of stuff. I mean, he looks pretty crazy here, I guess. But yeah, grab your natural dental detox kit. Yeah, I think this guy joined my Awakened Warriors email list. Yeah, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure this guy does some really, really weird stuff. Well, okay. Is that a soap? I don't know. I do not know. Yeah, but I don't know. He isn't really a conservative, just a very young boomer. No, this guy's a conservative. We've seen some of his stuff before. He's definitely a conservative. Or, well, again, I think he's insane. But his insanity trends here. Fauci, public enemy #1. You know what? Let's just watch. How to worship fear, why we should defund the police. And look, see, he's standing behind like a ruined city. When a liberal finally becomes conservative, are you seriously telling me he's not conservative? Do we make fun of this guy? We haven't covered any of the Fauci stuff, mostly because there's not really anything to cover. Isn't it all parody? Yeah, dude, it's all just a joke. Constantly, repeatedly expressing right-leaning talking points for the memes. Hey, by the way, my channel also parody, by the way. Please don't criticize me. This guy's grift is to pull in yoga moms and make fun of all the shit white libs do. Yeah. That's kind of the role. He fills a niche. This is, diversity of tactics. What
real about this?
What is the Fauci thing, anyway?
So now we're allowed to talk for real about this guy without getting censored? Huh. Okay. Let's do it. Fauci! Public enemy #1 or public savior #1? You be the judge. In light of Facebook's recent announcement that they'll no longer be censoring speech about the possibilities of the coronavirus being made in a lab, we're now allowed to look at the potential blood on Fauci's reptilian hands. But first, I would like to publicly condemn Facebook for lifting their ban. They're supposed to be a company dedicated to protecting the public from free speech, truth, and common sense.
Yeah, this is one of those guys. He does the Alex Jones thing where he says stuff that's so obviously, incredibly, provably, stupidly incorrect that he gets to hide everything that he says behind satire, even though he intersperses more reasonable conservative claims with the crazier ones.
Back to Fauci. Serious questions and evidence is being considered that suggests the pandemic that Dr. Fauci is advising the nation on how to handle may have been caused by Dr. Fauci.
Okay.
Let's dive in. The Wuhan lab in China was running gain-of-function research on coronaviruses. Gain-of-function research means manipulating coronaviruses so that they can infect humans more easily and become more lethal.
All right, hold on. We need to find an article on this because this guy's... I don't exactly trust this guy to be a truth teller. Snopes.com. The claim that Fauci is responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic is based in turn on speculation that NIH-funded gain-of-function research resulted in a manipulated form of the coronavirus spilling over from the Wuhan Institute of Virology and infecting the human population. To date, none of these claims have been substantiated, and Fauci has explicitly denied that the NIH funded the gain-of-function research on the coronavirus.
Obvious. Gain-of-function research means manipulating coronaviruses so that they can infect humans more easily and become more lethal.
Is he going to provide any evidence that this is what the lab was doing?
Obviously a necessary and helpful cause for the betterment of humanity. Did Fauci, who's the head of the NIH, use taxpayer money from the NIH to fund this research?
Is there any evidence?
Funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan. Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect.
I, for one, believe him. Unfortunately, the evidence accidentally suggests otherwise. If you want to get technical, Fauci's NIH funded Dr. Peter Daszak at Eco Health Alliance, who served as a middleman that then funded the Wuhan lab.
Okay, so again, I'm looking at an article right now, and it's saying there is no evidence whatsoever that... There's no evidence whatsoever that this took place. Do I need another article? Hold on. We have not funded gain-of-function research on this virus in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. No matter how many times you say it, it didn't happen. Wade and later Carlson also argued that gain-of-function research funded by the NIH was the likely source of a laboratory leak, a hypothesis that has been contested by the broader scientific community time and time again. So where is the evidence that the NIH funded gain-of-function research? Is there any evidence of that specific thing happening? None whatsoever? Hold on. If anyone has any like articles on this that are more critical, hold on. First and foremost, it's true that the WIV was one of the many research facilities around the world dedicated to the study of coronaviruses. Keep in mind that there are a lot of coronaviruses. It's not just COVID-19. It's just a broader type of coronavirus. Coronaviruses are one of the most common viruses and were at the center of the SARS 2001 and MERS 2012 epidemics, prompting efforts led by the NIH and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and NIH to better understand their potential for a pandemic, which is fine. That's a good thing. That's what these experts should do, right? One form of research conducted at these labs included the gain-of-function research. These are experiments to increase the transmittability or virulence of pathogens to make them more infectious to humans in order to help improve understanding of disease-causing agents and how they interact with humans, as well as their potential to cause a pandemic. In other words, scientists manipulate the genetic code of viruses to change certain elements, making them either more or less dangerous to better understand how they work. But in 2014, the Obama administration called for a pause on funding such experiments, SARS and MERS viruses in particular, and launched a government-led investigation into the risks and benefits of such research. An ethical analysis white paper, wow, written by Professor Michael Selgelid, and produced by the NIH Office of Science Policy and was published in the journal Science and Engineering Ethics in 2016, argued that gain-of-function research poses risks regarding biosecurity and biosafety. Using this guidance, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services developed a framework for guiding funding decisions about the gain-of-function research, and under the recommendation of experts, the NIH lifted its pause. It's true that the WIV is located miles from where the first COVID-19 outbreak was detected, and that the facility previously received funding from the NIH via the Eco Health Alliance Incorporated, a research organization based in New York City, as was reported on the government's website. But such international cooperation is not unusual, and funding of the lab was also provided through European, Asian, and African organizations, as well as the World Health Organization and the European Virus Archive goes global. So what I'm guessing happened then is that it's true that the American agency funded the WIV, but so did everybody else. And it wasn't funding specifically to do function research. And that there's still no connection between the WIV and the first outbreak of COVID-19, even though it took place nearby. Is that correct? To support its work, EcoHealth made sub-awards to the WIV and the other institutions based in East Asia. Sub-awards made when the primary grant recipients, another organization, to carry out part of the grantee's research project. In that case, the NIH said that it did not establish the terms of the award and that EcoHealth was directly accountable for the performance of the project. The research proposed in the grant application sought to understand how bat coronaviruses evolve naturally in the environment to become transmissible to the human population. This included studying viral diversity in bat reservoirs. Gain-of-function research studies how a virus can mutate to be more or less easy to spread. Yeah, but what I'm saying is the narrative that right-leaning people are pushing, or like, not this one, this guy, I guess, is that Fauci directly funded the the gain of function studies for the purpose of funding the gain of function studies, and then either maliciously or accidentally, those containments broke and were made public. Whereas it seems what actually took place is there was just general funding being given to the WIV, and that none of it was being done specifically for gain of function research, and additionally, that the ways in which that funding were spent was not up to Dr. Fauci or the Health and Human Services. But we funded this. Everyone funded it. That's the point. That was the point from up here. That funding also came through European, Asian, and African organizations, as well as the World Health Organization and the European Virus Archive. The narrative that right-leaning people are pushing is that it was like Fauci who like maliciously orchestrated this and then allowed it to leak, or it just leaked and he covered it up or something like that. But I don't know if there's any substantiation of this. The application did not propose research to enhance any coronavirus to become more transmissible or virulent, added Ruth. The application was subjected to rigorous peer review and was judged to be a high priority given how SARS-CoV had already emerged in this bat population. To support its work, EcoHealth made sub-awards to the WIV and other institutions based in East Asia where coronaviruses tend to emerge and are prevalent. And according to the NIH, funds that go to sub-awardees from the primary grantee must support the research activities that were approved of and funded in the grant, which did not include gain-of-function research. There you go, folks. The funding that came from the NIH was funding that was specifically stipulated to not go towards the gain-of-function research, which they did not approve in the grant that they funded. Does that make sense? That makes sense, yes? Whenever you're talking about something like biomedical research and like global funding, there are always going to be financial ties pretty much between all organizations. That doesn't mean there's a malicious conspiracy. There's also, as far as I can tell, no evidence that the virus that actually came out was from the lab. So even if there was gain-of-function research being done and funded by the NIH, that wouldn't necessarily mean that that was what ended up getting released. Okay, anyway.
Specifically, Dr. Shi at the Wuhan lab.
Oh, I just want to say, by the way, I'm fully in favor of further investigation into this issue. I'm interested in seeing what can be done to better our understanding of this situation, because it could be useful to virologists in the future. That being said, people on the right are not interested in furthering our understanding. This is a partisan smear job against Fauci because Fauci was critical of Lord Emperor Tyrant Donald Trump's handling of the coronavirus. That's it. If Fauci was a hardline Trump supporter who praised everything Trump did, then they would never have engaged in any of this behavior. They are explicitly doing this as part of an attack on Fauci, which is the reason why they're focusing on him rather than focusing on the broader institutions and systems that may have contributed to it. They don't give a shit about saving lives. They don't care at all about investigation or furthering our understanding. It is just about attacking. It's a witch hunt is what it is. And that is not the context in which this is acceptable.
Dr. Shi herself has even listed Fauci as a funder of her gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. While Fauci denies... Whoops. Didn't mean to show that headline. While Fauci denies...
Didn't mean to show that headline. Wuhan lab caught deleting files proving Fauci funding. Well, as we know, there was funding from the NIH. It just wasn't funding stipulated towards gain-of-function research. Wuhan lab caught deleting files proving Fauci funding. This is the only place I can find this is from childrenshealthdefense.org, which is and there's Jimmy Dore, I guess. In March, the Wuhan Institute of Virology deleted mentions of its collaboration with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, directed by Dr. Anthony Fauci. It also deleted descriptions of gain-of-function research on the SARS virus. Okay, what is the evidence provided here? The defender is experiencing censorship on many social channels. Fauci denied having ever funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, this despite clear documentation proving otherwise. Where's that clear documentation? Why would you not provide that? The Great Reset is in the headline. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The Great Reset is being featured here. Yeah, this is not a reputable news source. This is an anti-vax paper. The WIV deletes mentions of its collaboration with the NIH and NIAID and other American researchers from the deletes discussions. But where's the evidence of this? Is there like evidence on this? I don't see any evidence of this. I'm looking for links to the NIH funding of increase of function research back in 2014 now. The NIAID authorized GOF research, the gain of function bypassing review board. Oh, wait, this would actually be pretty scandalous if it took place. Bypassing a review board to fund gain of function research. But that's not all. After the moratorium was lifted in 2017, a special review board, the Potential Pandemic Pathogens Control and Oversight, was created with the DHHS to evaluate whether grants involving dangerous pathogens are worth the risks. The review board is also responsible for ensuring proper safeguards are in place for approved research. According to Rutgers University professor Richard Ebright, an NIH grant for research involving the modification of bat coronaviruses at the WIV was sneaked through because the NIAID didn't flag it for review. And here we have a Daily Caller article. Okay, what's this person's name? Richard Ebright. The National Institute of Health has systemically thwarted government oversight of dangerous pathogen research. Rutgers University professor of chemical biology Richard H. Ebright told the Daily Caller News Foundation. Let's take a look at this person, huh? Because if this person is just a random whistleblower, they shouldn't have any other history of like weird far-right conspiracy stuff, right? Called for a thorough investigation of the origin of the pandemic and for measures to reduce the risk of future pandemics. He was quoted in a Washington Post article that mischaracterized Tom Cotton's comments about the origins of coronavirus as debunked in conspiracy theory for 15 months. He said the Post admitted his views supporting the lab leak hypothesis and materially misrepresented his views, adding the watching the first rough draft of history being written as a partisan exercise rather than a journalistic exercise. Okay, so it doesn't seem like there's any weird far-right history here, which supports the credibility of his claim. Was there any evidence being provided that there was this grant that completely, like, skipped by the Ethics Review Board? Also, wouldn't the Ethics Review Board, like, oversee that? Like, how would... If you said, hey, this grant for millions of dollars was done without the oversight of the Ethics Board, couldn't the Ethics Board then, like, confirm that? Like, yeah, you're right, we didn't oversee this? Ebright said the offices of the Director for the National Institution of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, God, these mouthfuls, Christ, the sub-agency that funded EcoHealth, and the NIH have systemically thwarted, indeed systemically nullified, the HHS P3CO framework by declining to flag and forward proposals for review. Okay, so they're saying it wasn't done with oversight. It was being done through a loophole that people frequently abuse. Okay? An NIH spokesperson said its agency did not flag the EcoHealth grant for independent review by the HHS Review Committee. So it didn't receive an independent review. Does that mean that it got through and broke the rules, or does that mean there was some other non-independent review process? After careful review of the grant, the NIAID determined research in this grant was not gain-of-function research because it did not involve the enhancement of the pathogenicity or transmittability of viruses studied, the spokesperson told the DCNF. We would not submit research proposals that did not meet the definition because otherwise we would need to submit everything. So they're saying they didn't need to submit it for an independent review because it didn't involve gain-of-function research. So where's the evidence that it did involve gain-of-function research? So wait, we haven't seen any evidence of that. They said they used a loophole for it. The NIAID is committed to continuing GOF research. Lastly, Fauci is also clearly committed to continuing GOF research, seeing how the NIAID back in August 2020 announced a 5-year, $82 million investment in a new global network of centers for research in emerging infectious diseases. Peter Daszak's EcoHealth Alliance will receive $7.5 million from this grant, and planned research will include GOF types experiments that the NIAID says will determine what genetic or other changes make animal pathogens capable of infecting humans. Okay, but that's not the same claim that was being made earlier. The earlier claim was that funding was being given specifically to the WIV through a grant that was not flagged for independent review because they said that it didn't have any GOF research in it. But now they're saying, but you are committed to GOF research because of a separate grant. But they're not saying that this grant wasn't submitted to independent review, so where's the connection? I hate going through conspiracy stuff. All that basically serves as backstory to the latest development. It's now been discovered the WIV quietly deleted all mentions of its collaboration with Fauci's NIAID, the NIH, and other American research partners from its website shortly after Fauci testified in a Senate hearing when he went head-to-head with Senator Rand Paul on mask wearing, as reported May 15, 2021 by the National Pulse. The lab's website listed 6 U.S.-based research partners, UA, UNT, EcoHealth Alliance, Harvard University, the NIH, and the United States and the National Wildlife Federation. One day later, the page was revised to contain just 2 research partners, EcoHealth Alliance and the University of Alabama. By March 23rd, EcoHealth Alliance was the sole partner remaining. EcoHealth Alliance is run by long-standing Chinese Communist Party partner, Dr. Peter Daszak, who National Pulse editor-in-chief Raheem Kassem has repeatedly claimed will be the first fall guy of the Wuhan lab debacle. What is the National Pulse? What is the impulse? Wait, hold on. What is the input of an editor-in-chief of the National Pulse have to do? Of what relevance is this? Extreme far right, mixed factual reporting. I've actually never seen the dot this far over on the right. Take a look at Breitbart, okay? I'm pretty sure Breitbart's not that far over. Yeah, Breitbart is not that far over. Breitbart is actually left-leaning compared to the National Pulse. What exactly is their editor-in-chief's opinion have to do with anything here? Okay, this is completely meaningless and actually damages the credibility of this already highly conspiratorial article significantly. Beyond establishing a working relationship between the NIH and the Wuhan Institute of Virology, now deleted posts from the site also detail studies bearing the hallmarks of gain-of-function research conducted at the Wuhan-based lab. But is there evidence that the gain-of-function research was being done through funding provided by Dr. Fauci or organizations that he supersedes? That's the link that they failed to substantiate here. That's the whole central claim. And they make statement after statement after statement about parallel claims or adjacent claims, or here's one piece of information, or here's the other piece of information. Now deleted. This is a web archive link from the WHIOV. I don't know what I'm looking at here. We're looking at a February 12th, 2022 web archive. An article from this site, this Chinese website. What is the... Sorry, 2020, not 2022. The emergence of severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, threat of cross-species contamination. Recently, Professor Zhengli Shi and Xingyi Ge from... Sorry, I'm just not going to say the names. Whatever. In cooperation with research from the University of North Carolina, Harvard Medical School, Belizna Institute of Microbiology, etc., examine the disease potential of a SARS-like virus, which is currently circulating in Chinese horseshoe bat populations. Using the SARS-CoV reverse genetic system, the scientists generated and characterized a chimeric virus expressed in the spike of bat coronavirus SHC-CO014, just 014, in a mouse-adapted sample. The results. Is this even gain-of-function study? Is this even gain-of-function study? Yeah, this is from 2015. But the web archive is from 2020? It said they deleted emails. What does this have to do with anything? Now deleted posts from the site also detail studies bearing the hallmarks of gain-of-function research. Why am I taking any of this seriously? This deleted post is from 2015. This was during America's ban on the funding of gain-of-function research. This has literally nothing to do with the conspiracy. This is nothing to do with anything. And all of this is because we're looking at a single title from a far-right website that was flashed for a quarter second on this guy's stupid YouTube video. Why?
Whoops. Didn't mean to show that headline. Well, Fauci denies funding the gain-of-function research.
Just show the headline, bro. Don't actually go into any of the information inside to show that it's completely worthless, bro.
In Wuhan, he does admit to funding the Wuhan lab, but he trusts that the Chinese Communist Party wouldn't use his funding for gain-of-function research at the very same lab. Watch as...
Wait, that is a completely different... Wait, hold on. First of all, the Chinese Communist Party does not directly control policy at the WIV, okay? They have their own system there. The CCP is powerful. It doesn't literally dictate everything that ever happens anywhere in the entire country of China, okay? Like, much in the same way that we have government organizations in the planet that aren't directly controlled by Biden, okay? It doesn't work that way. Secondly, if you stipulate funding for non-gain-of-function research, and then later it's used covertly for gain-of-function research, that's not your fault. The argument then would be that you can never fund any institution ever for any reason because they could use it illegitimately to fund projects that you wouldn't support. That is not a... That would be like saying... like you don't believe in like ever giving money to any charitable cause because they could go off and spend that money on like fucking white phosphorus for bombing children, okay? It's not how that works. When you stipulate funding for a given cause, there has to be some degree of institutional trust. I noticed, by the way, no evidence that any of the stipulated funding was actually used for gain-of-function research, but okay.
Anthony responds to Senator Kennedy.
So you don't think the Chinese would lie to you? You think all the scientists have told the truth in terms of the origin of the Wuhan virus and not been influenced by the Communist Party of China, do you?
So this is one of the reasons why you shouldn't take this conspiracy seriously at all, okay? Because it's witch hunting, all right? This is not a genuine attempt at investigating the origins of a pandemic. It's an attempt at manufacturing nationalistic bias against China because Republicans don't want Trump to be blamed. Because the more China's at fault, the less Trump appears to be at fault. That's the reason why they care, okay? What does this mean? You trust the Chinese? What does that mean? You trust the China? What, all 1.4 billion of them? What do you mean? To what extent is the WIV directly susceptible to CCP policy? Like, I don't think it's not like it's a government agency and then like a Chinese Communist Party member just walks into the WIV and snaps their fingers and the WIV is like, yes sir, we'll use all the American funds for gain of function research, sir. Yes sir. Like, that's just not how this works, okay? It is the same argument people used when they said that the money I donated to the PCRF went to Hamas. You really trust the organization take the money? Hamas isn't going to take the money? Well, they have a perfect transparency rating and they're listed favorably by pretty much like every institution that deals with them. Yeah, but you really don't think the Hamas just going to take the money and use it for bombs? You're buying bombs for Hamas? Like, that's the level we're dealing with right here. Papega clap.
I don't have enough insight into the Communist Party in China to know the interactions between them and the scientists, sir.
Well, here's some of the
That's a completely reasonable statement, by the way. What kind of statement is, do you believe that the government of the country with the institution you're operating on is influencing the scientists at that organization to, like, what does that mean? You're basically asking Dr. Fauci if he believes in a conspiracy theory. I don't know. Can you prove it?
interactions between the Communist Party and the scientists, sir. Communist Party silences doctors over the true coronavirus origin. The Chinese Communist Party...
Oh no, I can't go over all these articles that he's just going over. Doctor... in China, silenced over true coronavirus origin. Medi claims? What is Medi claims? What does that mean? From the mirror.co.uk. What's their bias? Mirror.uk media bias. Let's find out. The Mirror. No, not the Daily Mirror. The Mirror.co.uk. .co. I don't see the Mirror, just the Daily Mirror. Is this the Daily Mirror? Whatever. I don't care. Let's just look. Why do conservatives say COVID is harmless, but also China's using it to kill us all? Cognitive dissonance, okay? Doctors from the COVID epicenter city of Wuhan has been reportedly caught on camera admitting they were silenced about the then emerging virus in 2019. Okay, so here's the question. Were they silenced about the severity of the violence? Oh, not violence, the virus, which I totally believe. Or were they silenced over the origins because it came from the WIV? Because China definitely lied about its COVID cases right off the bat. Like 100%. Easily. In the piece, he is said to say, we were told not to speak out. Provincial leaders told the hospitals not to tell the truth. We all felt there shouldn't be any doubt about human-to-human transmission. Yeah, this article is about doctors being silenced not over the origin of the violence, but its severity and the extent to which it was transmittable from person to person. But this guy is throwing this headline up in front as though it was supporting the idea that doctors admitted to being silenced over the lab origins. Did I say violence again? That's because I'm thinking of violence right now. You guys understand? This is how people lie to you. Quickly flash headlines in front of you. Don't investigate. Don't look at them. Don't think about it. Just accept the narrative from this guy, Awaken with JP, who I'd love to have on stream, by the way. Would love to talk with this guy so we can, I don't know, he'd probably like disallow me from his cult or whatever.
The Chinese Communist Party made the whistleblowing doctor disappear. China arrests hundreds for speaking out about the coronavirus origins.
No, not origins. Speaking out about its transmittability and the rate at which it was spreading in China, not its origins. That's completely incorrect. He's just lying here. This is just a lie. Just a flat out lie.
Also worth noting that the Chinese Communist Party is currently running a genocide.
That is true.
It seems like the Chinese Communist
And that's bad.
Party doesn't have any influence over the doctors and scientists that they rule. Given that
Hold on. China is a 1.4 billion person country. Just because the Chinese government silenced journalists and doctors with the extent of coronavirus early on did not mean they were secretly directing people at the Wuhan Institute of Virology to misuse funding given to them by international aid organizations, okay? Those are two completely separate claims. America has had journalists killed. America has had civil organizers killed. But just because somebody I like dies because they slipped on like a bump on the sidewalk doesn't mean that I get to start throwing up headlines about previous assassinations from the government and draw a conspiracy from it.
That all this information is on public display, it's understandable that Fauci doesn't understand what the interactions are like between the Chinese Communist Party and the doctors and scientists that they rule.
Because he was asked about a conspiracy theory. The narrative that the Chinese Communist Party is directing the WIV to misuse funding that was stipulated for non-gain-of-function research is a conspiracy theory. How could Dr. Fauci possibly answer that question? Dr. Fauci, do you believe in this thing over which I have absolutely no evidence but might happen? I don't know.
Over. It's also worth considering that Fauci is probably able to see trustworthiness, nobility, and honesty in the Chinese Communist Party.
What? It's funny. This guy comes off like he's some kind of free thinker. This guy is peddling hardcore, like nationalist lines, you know? Dr. Fauci, I don't like him. He must be a CCP agent.
Because after all, he's a doctor and you're not. So it's probably better for you to trust his perspective rather than the evidence that you can see. Fauci.
Wait, so first of all of the evidence that this guy has provided so far has ended up being completely fake upon examination. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here, okay? Second of all, what was that segue Dr. Fauci trusts the Chinese Communist Party because he's a doctor and people trust doctors? What does that even mean?
Fauci still maintains that it's very unlikely that COVID-19 was man-made in a lab and very likely came from an animal in the wild.
Yeah, because the lab research the WIV was doing on the novel coronavirus was in bats having it. That's the research they were doing it. They already know COVID did come from the bats. That was in the article that you linked. The bats are the origin. That is objectively true. The question is whether or not the virality of the coronavirus taken from the bats was amped up by the WIV, of which there is still no evidence. And no evidence of that being funded by American or by Fauci's stipulations.
More likely that this is a natural occurrence, as has happened with.
Can we just move on? Guys, we're going to be hearing about this conspiracy theory for years. Aren't you privileged to have the opportunity to debunk it live? I know that I am. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to do this, okay? Now when people bring this up in future debates, I know exactly what to say. Hey, is there any evidence that money specifically stipulated for gain-of-function research was provided to the WIV from Dr. Fauci? No? Oh, how convenient that is then.
SARS-CoV-1, where it goes from an animal reservoir to a human?
Indeed, very likely that it came from a bat. Just coincidentally in the exact same city that houses the Wuhan lab that Fauci.
Do you know why they chose the Wuhan lab? Do you know why? This is coming from one of the articles we read today. The reason why the Wuhan lab was the epicenter of the study of this coronavirus was because it was close to the bats that had the coronavirus. It wasn't random. It wasn't just such a coincidence that there happened to be the WIV right next to where the outbreak was. The WIV was the facility that was chosen because it was adjacent to populations they knew were susceptible to COVID-19 transmittability or coronavirus transmittability. It's not a coincidence. It's causal, but it's causal in the other direction. Isn't Wuhan a huge city anyway, even if it was a coincidence? Yeah, Wuhan is, hold on. Wuhan province, it's a province, I think, right? Population. Oh no, it's a capital, my bad. I thought it was a province. Wow, what beautiful architecture. Look at this building. That's just such a nice building. About 12 million? Yeah, okay, this is like a mega city, you know? Yeah, anyway.
Fauci funded that happens to be doing gain-of-function experiments on the coronavirus.
So, is there any evidence that the money Fauci provided was stipulated towards that gain-of-function research? And then follow-up, is there any evidence that there was actually a COVID lab leak? Because they still haven't attempted to even prove that. Keep in mind, it wasn't just Dr. Fauci who was funding the WIV. There were facilities all over the world, remember? From Africa, from Europe, from Asia, from the WHO. Tons of money was being poured into the WIV because there was a noted risk of novel coronavirus transmission and high human transmittability. They knew this was going to happen. That's why people were putting money into this facility.
In communist China. By comparison, the SARS-1 host animal was identified within 4 months. The MERS host animal was identified within 9 months. With the current virus, no host animal has been identified after 16 months.
Isn't it the bats? Isn't the lab was studying bats? Hasn't everyone been saying it's bats? What do we mean? No, hasn't this been the narrative for ages? It's bats. He meant the specific type of bat. It's bats. It's bats. It's a combination of several creatures. Then why did he only list one creature in the previous examples?
Virus, no host animal has been identified after communist China. By comparison, the SARS-1 host animal was identified within 4 months. The MERS host animal.
He just says animal. They find the exact animal with the same virus. So you're saying that the specific subspecies with the specific strain of virus hasn't yet been identified? I was under the impression that it was like the bats have like the base virus, and then like the bat was eaten by a pig or something, and the pig had it in it, and the pig's like the biological process of the pig like made it so that the humans could get it from the bat or something like that. I think it was something like that. Even if no like specific, like hyper specific host animal has been found. Oh, like Samantha the COVID bat? Wait, do we mean the literal single host animal? Like the literal one member of the species? Is that what we're referring to? If that's the case, that seems like it'd be pretty tough to find in Wuhan, a mega city, but like patient zero? I don't know. That could have been mishandling from the Chinese Communist Party. If a virus starts to spread around, it's possible they prioritized containment over investigation, and for that reason, it was difficult for them to like investigate their way back to whatever the origin point of that was. I genuinely don't know, but I don't think this is an argument in favor of a lab leak. Yeah.
Was identified within 9 months. With the current virus, no host animal has been identified after 16 months. So it probably came from an animal. Though no animals have been found that could have passed the virus to humans, a lab has been found that could have passed the virus to humans.
No, oh my God. Dude, while no virus has been found that would go from animal to humans, the lab made it. No, the lab has been funded because it's next to the bats that had the novel. The very article that you linked had this. Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind over here. That Wayback Machine link that we looked at, down here. Hold on. I need to find it. I need this. We need to find it. We need to find it again. Where was it? Please. In a now deleted page. Here we go. Yeah, web archive. Yeah. This is an article from 2015 specifically saying that bats are a vector for coronavirus that are being studied as such. You linked a source. You supplied a source which explained why the lab was here, why the lab is being funded, that this was known years before COVID-19 came to hit. They knew this. I bet you when the WIV researchers realized that COVID-19 was spreading, when they realized what it was, they smacked their heads with their hands and they said, we didn't act fast enough. If only we had had more time, if only we had had more money, we could have found a way to provide a vaccine or to otherwise like act against this before it even happened, you know? They were working to prevent this from happening. That was the whole point.
Which is further evidence that it likely came from an animal. And in an act of good science, the Chinese Communist Party refuses to allow the Wuhan lab to be investigated. Further evidence that...
Is that true? China refuses to give WHO raw data on early COVID-19 cases. Is this it? Is this what we're referring to? The Chinese authorities have turned down requests to provide such data on 174 cases of COVID-19 they have identified from the early phase of the outbreak in the Chinese city of Wuhan. The investigators are part of a WHO team that this week completed a month-long mission in China aimed at determining the origins of the pandemic. What does this have to do with the Wuhan lab? That's a great question. Chinese officials and scientists provided their own extensive summaries and analysis of data on the cases to the WHO team members. They also supplied aggregated data. But the WHO team wasn't allowed to view the raw underlying data on those retrospective studies, which could allow them to conduct their own analysis on how early and how extensively the virus began to spread in China, the team member said. It's funny that the people being denied the ability to investigate are the WHO, when Trump and I bet Awaken with JP both said that the WHO is like a CCP puppet. It's just funny. They're like the WHO kowtows to the will of the CCP, but here they are like being blocked by the CCP. Just interesting. So what does this have to do with the Wuhan Institute of Virology? Because I'm not seeing any mention of it here. I'm only seeing like early data not being provided. Like, is there anything here that I should be aware of? I mentioned Wuhan earlier. Yeah, the city. The city of Wuhan with 12 million people. Not the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They literally won't allow investigator teams into the lab. Well, hold on. Won't allow a team to be investigated. I'm just looking for the headline that he provided. WIV investigation blocked. I will never type correctly. Lab leak theory inside the fight to uncover COVID-19's origins. This is like America not wanting to release mRNA technology. Well, no, in that case, that's because America doesn't want to release it because there's like a business, there's a profit to be made in like keeping that proprietary. In this case, we're trying to find the origins of a pandemic. So this is a little different. This isn't about protecting like intellectual property. It's about... Okay. Hold on. All right, coronavirus happened and it was super cringe. Cringe. Wuhan is also home to China's foremost coronavirus research laboratory, housing one of the world's largest collections of bat samples and bat virus strains. Okay. To some people, it seemed natural to ask whether the virus causing the global pandemic had somehow leaked from one of the WIV's lag, a possibility that she had strenuously denied. So here's something that I want to make clear, by the way, really straightforward. I actually think there is a possibility of a lab leak, and I'm totally amicable to that possibility being the case, and I want people to investigate it to find out whether or not that's actually true. The problem that I have is the conspiracy baiting, the lying, which we have seen plenty of here, and the attempt to use it to fuel some sort of political or partisan agenda. Like, for example, the involvement of Fauci. The idea that Fauci was like deliberately funding money here to like secretly fuel gain-of-function research in an effort to deliberately release some pandemic. And then there are other conspiracies that China deliberately released it as part of some like attack on the US, except it hit China first. There's a ton of crazy conspiracy BS that goes into this that is completely unjustifiable. And that's the stuff that I take issue with. Now, investigating the possibility of a lab leak, that I think is totally good. The investigation is good, and I do think that China should be as transparent as possible. I'm just trying to see if they've been denied access to the WIV itself. On February 19, 2020, The Lancet published a statement that roundly rejected the lab leak hypothesis. Very nice, very cool, very pog. This is a very long article. Damn, we should have just read this article from the get-go. A months-long Vanity Fair investigation, interviews with more than 40 people, and a review of hundreds of pages of U.S. government documents, including internal memos, meeting minutes, etc., found the conflicts of interest hampered the U.S. investigation into COVID-19's origin at every step. In one State Department meeting, officials seeking to demand transparency from the Chinese government say they were explicitly told by colleagues not to explore the Wuhan Institute of Virology's gain-of-function research because it would bring unwelcome attention to U.S. government funding of it. Ah, interesting. So U.S. State Department officials have said there's a possibility U.S. government funding could go to it, and they don't want to examine it because that's the case. Don't pursue an investigation into the origin of COVID-19 because it would open a can of worms if it continued. This is Thomas DiNanno, former acting assistant secretary to the State Department Bureau of Arms Control, Verification, and Compliance. Is that a relevant department? No. Wrote that staff from two bureaus, his own and the Bureau of Internal Security and Nonproliferation, that is a relevant department, warned leaders not to pursue an investigation. Interesting. There are reasons to doubt the lab leak hypothesis. Okay. There's a long, lab leak, simply not treated not simply as unlikely or even inaccurate, but as morally out of bounds. So I want to read more into this, but this article I think I need to read on my own. Here, I want to end this actually. I want to end this actually here because there's something I want to say that matters most to me, okay? If you want to investigate the truth, you cannot pollute your investigation of the truth with BS, which is what the right has only been doing, okay? There has never been, on the part of the right, a sincere effort to investigate this lab leak hypothesis. From day one, it has been used as an attempt to exonerate the Trump administration, to paint this as some kind of foreign weapon that Trump had no chance of doing better against, as a way of demonizing Fauci, who, and I've had disagreements with Fauci in the past, but they have to be disagreements that are substantiated. The problem is there's no way to know what is truthful or not, and you actually pollute the real investigation for truth. Look at all of the falsehoods that we found in 5 minutes of video. Look how long it took us to find things that were objectively incorrect right off the bat. It was immediate, it was easy, blatant conspiracism, blatant nonsense. And this makes it harder. Vosh, it's called We Lie to You News. This guy is saying what he actually believes. Stop baiting the obvious. If Alex Jones had a little button up on the top right that said this is all satire, would you go like, oh dude, this is clearly a joke? It said this is all satire right there. This guy has an entire channel dedicated to conspiracism, of half like sincere adoption of terrible talking points, and of anti-vax and conspiracy BS. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to get at here is that people like this make it harder to know what's actually true or not by obfuscating the actual evidence of behind like an investigation. Another example of this is QAnon. Child sex trafficking is a real problem, but anti-child sex trafficking organizations have actually come out and denounced QAnon because QAnon is so full of nonsense that it makes it harder to actually engage in anti-child sex trafficking. They make it harder for actual people to really save children's lives. And that's one of the reasons why I despise this so much. If the COVID lab leak hypothesis ends up being proved true, it does not go against anything that I have said here. Because what I have said here, first and foremost, more than anything else, is that I want people to be honest with their evidence, to not be conspiratorial. So if a non-conspiratorial investigation ends up condemning the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the CCP, Fauci even, good. I want that evidence out there. But do not lie to get there.